Hi there, esteemed audience, and welcome to another episode of Middle Grade Ninja. I'm your host, Rob Kent. As you know, I'm the author of Banneker Bones and the Giant Robot Bees, Banneker Bones and the Alligator People, and the upcoming, yet to be revealed, third Banneker Bones adventure. Although, if you're following me on Instagram, I got too clever by half yesterday, and for a little while I posted just a clip of the Word document that said Banneker Bones and the, not realizing that the full file name was at the top of the photo. So anybody that was checking my Instagram for about 30-40 minutes the other day, you know what the title is. Everybody else remains a mystery. If you're curious what it's all about, we got an 11-year-old biracial boy detective flying around on a jetpack with his cousin, Ellicott Skullworth. They've got EMP blast rifles to blast giant robot bees out of the sky. Then they're coming back with alligator people, and a third, as of yet to be revealed, nemesis coming soon, early next year. If you're curious, you can check out Banneker Bones and the Giant Robot Bees for free. For free as an ebook to download whenever you're watching or listening to this, wherever fine ebooks are sold. And of course, the books are also available as paperbacks. And the first book so far is available as an audiobook narrated by David Radke. Hopefully, we'll get the second one out before too terribly long. Under the super secret pen name Robert Kent, I've written some horror novels, such as the young adult novel All Together Now a Zombie Story. And really, you middle grade readers, that's the place to start. Lots of violence, but absolutely no profanity. That's All Together Now a Zombie Story. And then if you want violence and profanity, check out The Book of David by Robert Kent. And that is a 5-volume horror series about an atheist who buys a haunted house that then begins to give him religious visions involving flying saucers. So right away from that pitch, you know whether that story is for you. If you're curious, you can check out the first parts, 5 volumes. The Book of David, Chapter 1, the first in the series, is available to download as an ebook for free whenever you're watching or listening to this, wherever fine ebooks are sold. Coming up on the podcast in the near future here, we're going to be chatting with literary agent Carrie Pursuto and author Alicia D. Williams, plus a whole bunch of other guests. If you want to keep up with what's going on with the show, as always, you can find out more about me, more about our upcoming guests, more about everything at middlegradeninja.com. You can also read interviews with hundreds of authors and publishing professionals. So if you say, I'm tired of listening to things, let me read, Kent. middlegradeninja.com, I got you covered. Today, I couldn't be more excited. We're going to be chatting with Gregg Millman. Gregg, thanks so much for clearing the time to be here. How are you today?
Excellent. Honored to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much for coming. Probably the best spot to get started is if you would just tell esteemed audience kind of an overview, the short version of who you are and what you're all about.
Sure. So I'm a writer living in Hollywood. And quick background, I started writing professionally in news for MSNBC and CNBC cable news, then moved out to California to do the screenwriter thing and worked in TV and film for a number of years. Then I transitioned to advertising and took my writing skills and wrote a bunch of taglines and commercials and advertising. And recently I've circled back to sort of kid stuff with a middle grade novel series that I just launched. So, yep.
We're going to talk about all things advertising and screenwriting and everything else. But first, let's start right away by talking about your new middle grade novel. So tell us a little bit about the Candy Kingdom Saga.
Yeah, so the Candy Kingdom Saga is a story about 2 7th grade kids who they're playing a video game kind of like Candy Crush. And as a team, they become like the world champs of it. And after winning it, they realized that the video game was like a recruiting tool to find who was the best warrior to fight candy wars, because there's a real world in an alternate dimension that is the Candy Kingdom. And so these 2 7th graders get transported to the candy world, and they end up in the middle of this sort of fierce battle between the good guy Sweet Treats and the bad guy Sour Powers. And they are obviously trying to help the good guy Sweet Treats bring peace to the Candy Kingdom.
Love those names. How much fun did you have naming everything in this book?
That was a lot of fun.
So who is the ideal reader for the Candy Kingdom?
I would say it is 3rd, 4th, 5th graders, maybe 6th or 7th. I had a couple of kids of friends who are in 6th or 7th enjoy it as well. But yeah, mainly wrote it with my son, who's now 9 and in 4th grade, and for him, and for girls as well. But yeah, so I would say, 8, 9, 10, 11 in there.
How does that collaboration work between you and your son? It's you, right?
Yes. Yeah.
How did collaboration go?
Yeah, it was just sort of, it happened organically. I had written stuff for kids before, but he was younger at the time. So when I was like writing for TV and movie stuff, he wasn't old enough to watch it. But now, the reason I started writing kids novels was because I was reading them with you every night. And I just got addicted to all these middle grade novels, way more than I thought I ever would. And just series after series we devoured. And yeah, I sort of just decided I was going to try to write one that he would enjoy as much as we enjoyed these books together. So that's how I started writing it. And then at night, when we were sort of doing bath time and getting ready for bed, I would just update him. Oh, this is what I worked on today, this character and this event. And then he would start pitching me ideas like, oh, what if you did this? And what if you did that? And so yeah, it just became like a nightly collaboration where we would, go over the day's progress in the book, and he would give me feedback. And yeah, he came up with great ideas. Some of the ideas for the sequel books, like at the end of each book, they end up going into a new world that's sort of related to the Candy world. And yeah, he came up with some of those ideas. So yeah, it was just a fun thing to do together. So we just kept doing it.
So for the good of the series, it sounds like Hugh needs to never grow up.
Yes. Exactly. My wife would be yelling like, "You're working him to death at night. Leave him alone."
And he's, I'm assuming, over the moon with how the book came out.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he was thrilled, very happy. And even on the cover, it was funny, the artist never saw a picture of Hugh, but when the artist did the boy on the cover, it looks exactly like Hugh. Just spitting image. So he was quite excited when he saw that.
For the original cover, not the cover that's on there currently, but the first cover of Banneker Bones and the Giant Robot Bees, I sent my illustrator, Stephen Novak. I sent him a picture of my son. Make him look like that.
That's awesome. I didn't, you know what? Now that you say it, I probably should have done that, but I didn't even think to do that. So I just got lucky. You did it the right way.
Well, eventually I replaced it with a giant bee. So
I'm sure was he happy about that, or?
Honestly, he's 5, and that's just Daddy's thing at this point. So when he gets old enough to actually read the series, then I'm sure I'll give him a copy with the original cover. Like, see, buddy, it looks a little bit like you, huh?
Yeah, and he'll be like, "Why didn't this stay the cover? Come on."
And I wanted to ask you, at this point, do you know how many books you're going to write? How far planned are you, and how far along are you on the series?
Yeah, so I'm writing the second book right now. I'm imagining it's 5 books that they have. There's sort of 2 more worlds that they go into, and then in book 4, it's not quite a different world, but it's something special, which I don't want to give away. And then the 5th book, it all ends up back in our world, and all the madness and candy creatures and everything from all the other worlds will have a final showdown in our world. So that's the plan, at least, to do 5 books in the series.
Excellent. And then eventually when they make the movie, they'll compress them all and just do the last one as the primary movie, because that sounds like the cheapest to film.
That's it. It's done here. Yeah, exactly.
So he was on board. He signed off on the plan for.
Yes. Yeah. He's the one who definitely came up with a couple of those settings, the worlds for the next book. So he's on board for 5, but I have to do all the work. So he's like, yeah, do 5 books, no big deal.
7, it's all the same.
Make them twice as long. Come on, Dad.
So, because there is a lot of world building in this, and there's a lot of great, fun, wonderful names for all of the candy creatures that they're encountering. Lots of it's not the thing, it's not the brand name, but it's close.
Right.
We know what you're getting at.
Right.
How are you keeping all of that organized so that your world is cohesive throughout 5 books? And how deeply are you outlining ahead?
I'm definitely only outlining one book at a time in great detail, other than the sort of the overall plan of the arc of the series. Although I will say, as I do start the second book, Hugh and I are starting to discuss like character arcs across the whole 5 series. You know, where do we want this character to sort of grow and end up in book 5? So we are sort of talking about bigger character arcs across it, but yeah, I mean, in terms of like outlining in detail, I'm just doing one book at a time. So now I'm, into book 2. But yeah, the question of how to keep it all organized is a good one. So I've started color coding my outlines, because there's 2 worlds. There's this world and there's the candy world, and soon there's going to be other worlds. And then even within each world, there's different subplots. So yeah, I never color coded my outlines before, but for this one, every time, it's a new world, it's the same color comes back in the outline, so I can scan through it and see, oh, it's been a while since I hit this storyline or that storyline. So we'll see. Hopefully color coding will help keep things straight.
Been using an appendix, which I make it available online because why not? So if you head to middlegradeninja.com and click under the special features for Banneker Bones, you can see my appendix, and I've just got a list of every character in every setting.
Oh wow!
So that I use that thing at least once a writing session. I try not to, if I'm actually drafting, I try not to spend too much time on there. But if I just need to remember something, it's not the same as doing like an online search that leads me to 10 different rabbit holes. It's just the appendix that's there.
Yeah.
And it's tremendously come in handy.
That's pretty cool. I never even thought to do that. Yeah. And so when you add to the appendix, does it update live on the site, or yeah?
So there are characters by the time book 3 comes around that I'm having to keep separate on my outline.
Yeah.
Because it's really spoilery to put them up there publicly. But everything else is game.
That's interesting. That's, you know what? I may do that. You're right. There's so many characters and place locations and spells. That's a good idea.
I can't imagine anybody happening upon it and taking the time to read it who hadn't first read the book and wasn't already interested in, or people who listen to the podcast and are just interested in writing in general. And then you freeloaders probably weren't going to read the book anyway.
Have at it. That's funny. I mean, for readers, if you're really into the series, having the appendix is a great idea. So yeah, I may steal that.
What my wife did, this really nerdy, in the best way, was it her master's thesis when she was getting her master's degree. It was a contextual analysis of The Gunslinger by Stephen King. Okay. So we've got multiple appendices for all the characters and all of the things and that. And I looked through that like, I bet this was really handy. Right. And then I was reading one of the author notes for the 4th or 5th book, and Stephen King was like, "Thank you to the authors of this appendix. Really helpful to have had it handy." So
he actually read it, and that's amazing. That's fantastic.
There's a photo of him with it on his desk.
That's fantastic. That is so cool. Was she really psyched when she found that out? That's amazing.
Oh, it's also a lot of pressure if you're the appendix maker. Like, I hope I got it all right. Or those future books.
You'll end up getting an angry letter from Stephen King. You forgot this character.
Well, if he goofed because he read their appendix, I mean, could you publicly get angry about that? Like, look, dude, it's your book. You should have done the work.
I'm just trying to help you here.
So, what did I wanted to ask you about? A lot of questions about the book. Because obviously you've got a sample for book 2. So no matter how far along you are in book 2, there's a sample at the end of book 1. So for sure. It opens that way. I assume you're kind of
exactly. That. It opens that way. Yeah, I thought it would be fun. What was it? I was watching the 21 Jump Street movies. I don't know if you've seen those. Yeah, and then and in the sequel, there's just a ton of jokes about it being a sequel, where they sort of like wink, wink, nod, nod to the audience about like oh, the budget is bigger for this the new Office, you know, because it's like a bigger budget for the sequel. So yeah, I thought it'd be funny if Cassie was like aware in sort of a meta way, like, oh, this could be the, you know, this is the sequel to the first one. So yeah, it's I'm stuck with that opening.
I am hard. I said Jonah Hill ones. Like I'm trying to remember. Were there Johnny Depp movies? I don't recall if there were. Not.
Exactly.
But I read that for a while it was going to be a 23 Jump Street crossover with the Men in Black, which I was really rooting for.
I know. I heard about that. I don't know why that got scrapped. I think the whole world was excited about that. Yeah, I know.
Would have been amazing. Oh, Hollywood.
Yeah, Hollywood.
And then I wanted to ask you, just for, I guess, an extra challenge for yourself. You've written almost every chapter. Well, every chapter is from a different perspective. There's some repeats along the way, of course.
Yeah.
But we're getting multiple perspectives on the story, which is a little bit unusual, which is good. It was nice and refreshing. So what is it that writing from those multiple perspectives each chapter allows you to do that a single perspective wouldn't do?
Yeah. I was thinking about that the other day. I mean, I've seen it. I've read it in other books and in a couple of the middle grade series that my son and I have read. Did you ever read the Origami Yoda series?
Absolutely.
Yeah, is fantastic. That's written from different perspectives. And then the Nerds Spy series, N period, E period, R period, D period, S period. I think each book is written from a different perspective on the team. There's like 5 or 6 kids on the team. But yeah, it was just something I thought was kind of cool. And I also sort of didn't want to be locked into, although Cassie sort of is the lead character, I thought it's sort of a large cast and a large world for the series. So I thought if I had different narrators rotating, you know, I might be able to have book 2 focus on this character on Landon, and book 3 maybe focus on a candy creature. So yeah, it was a couple of different things. I thought it would be interesting also just to get this sort of perspective that you might not expect, like, oh, the mean girl who seems like she's a bit of a bully, you know, she has her own take on things, and maybe she's not as mean as you think, or, you know, the reason she's being mean isn't what you think. So yeah, it was a couple different things. I thought it'd be kind of interesting, and then also let me do things in the sequels, you know, like switch the focus to other characters.
So that'll be continued throughout the 5 books. Every chapter will always.
I think so. Yeah. Yep. That's the plan.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That sounds extra complicated for revision, though, because I mean, each of the voices was very distinctive. It's not the same tone throughout.
Oh my God, I mean, I've written dialogue for movies, obviously, so I'm aware of like different characters have different voices. But when I when I got into writing the novel, it was so much harder than I thought. To come up with very distinct voice for each character that's narrating, it was definitely a bit of a challenge. But once you figure them out, you know, you can sort of run with the character. But yeah, it was more work than I expected.
Yeah, no, I saw that, and oh my, Gregg's been busy.
And now,
how did this book take you to write, and how long did you also spend revising it?
Yeah. I was just gonna say one more thing on the voices. In the second book, they go to a new world, so I had to come up with all new accents because I figured there's a sort of British knights and pirates, you know, tone in the first one, but the second one is a different world. So yeah, now it's a whole other set of accents and characters. How long did it take? So
get some pirate and knight sensitivity readers to check to see how your world building went. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
So, how long did it take? Yeah. So, well, the actual sort of writing of it, I started January 1st. It was a New Year's resolution that I was going to write a kid's novel and finish it this year. And I believe I finished June 30th. So it was 6 months writing. And then, but I had developed it as a TV pitch before I wrote it as a novel. So I had pitched it to a number of networks. So I had a full, you know, pitch deck with characters and the different episodes that was going to be season 1, and the world. So I had done a lot of the world building before I actually started writing.
How much time did you initially spend on the world building?
How much time? I developed the pitch over a long period, maybe, just coming back to it now and again. I would get a pitch meeting set with somebody, and so I would work on it and pitch it, and then they wouldn't buy it, and I would put it down and then come back to it, months later if I had another meeting about it, and rework it again. So yeah, it just sort of developed over time, probably over a year or two, the TV pitch version of it. So yeah, that really helped, because when I started to write it, the first season that I had broken out obviously kind of worked for the first book. So it was obviously I had a head start when I started. So the 6 months is a bit of a cheat. So
no such thing as cheating in this business. You gotta finish, by God, it counts.
Exactly.
So then 6 months to write, and then what's your revision process, or does that include the revision throughout?
Yeah, that happened to include the revision. Yeah, I mean, I kind of revise as I go. Write a chapter, go back, revise the chapter, go back to the start, and kind of go back through. And then finish it, give it to friends who are readers. They give me notes, revise again. So I would say the revising process happens for me as I'm writing it. Really, just writing is rewriting, as I like to say.
I'm assuming that's a skill you've honed over years of writing screenplays.
Yeah. Just giving it to readers and friends who I trust, and to get honest criticism. So that that's definitely a big part of TV writing and movie writing, is getting notes from other people, and which I've always found to be super helpful. So I sort of have my circle of fellow writers who are my readers, and then I read their stuff and give them notes. So I'm sure most writers have something like that.
Oh, they should.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't. But the best ones do.
Yeah.
So how, I'm assuming, 6 months you're not working just on this. I'm assuming you've got other projects in the hopper and other things you're working at as well.
Yeah. No, it's, I have a bit of a day job in advertising and branding and marketing. So I do a lot of sort of, coming up with ideas for brands and commercials and taglines and stuff like that. So yeah, the writing is sort of part of the day, but not the full day. The novel writing, that is, the tagline writing is part of the day.
We're definitely going to talk about that as well. But I wanted to ask you, so are you carving out time in the morning before you start advertising, in the evening? How much time are you putting in every day on just the book?
Yep. I try to do like maybe an hour in the morning before work. Sometimes I get to work early and do it there because it's nice and quiet. And then, at night after the kids go to sleep, I try to work from about, 9 or 10 till as late as I can go, 12 or 1. Depending if I'm really in the book and cranking on it, I'll put in those 3 or 4 hours. Sometimes when I'm in the outlining stage, it'll be a little less intense. But yeah, so it's sort of a morning and night kind of thing after the kids are asleep.
That must be a true love. To do first thing and then again in the evening.
Yeah, it takes a lot of energy.
I'm assuming that's ongoing now with book 2 until that's completed, and then.
Yep. Yeah, that's the process for now.
And then I'm assuming he was coming up with new ideas even while you're trying to catch up with the.
Yeah, we've started book 2, and I'm starting to ask him questions like, okay, I'm stuck here. I need a whole storyline for this character. So he's been assigned what he needs to come up with. So I'll check in with him tonight and see if he came up with anything good.
And then I wanted to ask you about publishing, because this is done in June. That doesn't leave a whole lot of time to have spent querying agents, publishers, and all of that. So did you always know you wanted to go straight to the indie route?
Yeah. I had, done the screenwriting for, networks and studios, TV and movie stuff. And yeah, when I decided to write this as a kid's novel. I just thought I would just like to have total freedom. So yeah, I just decided from the start I was going to self-publish it, just sort of write it as I wanted to write it, not get any notes from agents and managers and executives, and then just put it out there and see if I could get traction with it. So I mean, if it ended up going back and becoming a TV show or a movie, that would be amazing. And I mean, if a publishing house came up to me and said we'd love to publish it, sure. But yeah, I mean, the plan was sort of self-publish it and run with it from there. Yeah.
You dealt with enough gatekeepers in your day-to-day screenwriting and everything else. Not interested when it comes to.
Not interested. Yeah, it was just really a lot of fun just to kind of do what I wanted to do this time. I mean, obviously I take input from my fellow readers and from you, but yeah, it was nice to not have all these layers of bureaucracy on top of it.
It's a nice thing about indie publishing is I always make the joke when I teach a class on self-publishing is there is no one way to publish. There is no right way to publish. There are better ways. There are things you can do that are better than anything else. But if you go to a conference and you go and you spend some time with the traditionally published authors and you go and you spend some time with the indie published authors, usually the vibe is just a little bit happier on the indie side.
Oh, really? That's interesting. That's funny. So you've actually noticed the difference.
Yeah, well, they're all singing and dancing. We got no strings. They can do whatever they like.
No puppets here. Yeah, that's funny. Okay, well, I feel better about my decision.
The traditional authors are having a great time as well, and everybody's jealous of everybody. The traditional guys will come over like, "What? You could just do anything? That's amazing, and you're allowed to do that. I can't do that." And then the authors, indie authors will come over and say, "Wait, your editor did what for you now? Your publicist did what? Oh, I need that." So everybody's jealous of everybody still.
Yeah. Grass is always greener. Yep.
Worse. None of that in Hollywood, I'm sure.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, you've already pitched it as a TV series once, but of course, after this podcast hits and the book becomes a #1 bestseller, because I'm told that this podcast has that power, then you'll be out and you'll be pitching, and then theoretically you could be adapting a book that you originally adapted from a screenplay to a book, now back to a screenplay, right?
Yeah. And then maybe they'll make a video game based on the book, which has a video game based on the movie. But yeah, something like that.
And then 20 years from now, the reboot musical.
Yes. That'd be awesome. Broadway, here we come.
So let's talk a little bit about Hollywood, and then don't let me forget. I want to circle back and talk about MSNBC.
Sure.
But let's talk a little bit about screenwriting. So, how does one get started as a screenwriter?
I think there are a lot of different ways to break in, but I think for most people it's easier to move to Los Angeles, where you can make connections and meet other established writers who can help introduce you to their agents and managers. So yeah, when I came out here, I got a job as a writer's assistant on a show actually through MSNBC. Lawrence O'Donnell, who's an MSNBC host, he has his own show called The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell. He had a NBC show picked up to series. He was on The West Wing as a writer, and it was sort of not quite a spin-off, but it was a show about a senator called Mr. Sterling with Josh Brolin. And I had met Lawrence at MSNBC and said, "Oh, I'm moving out to Los Angeles. Can you get me a job on The West Wing?" And he gave me his card. And so when I moved out here, I had his card with me, and I gave him a call, and his show had just been picked up to series. And he literally said, "You start tomorrow."
Awesome.
And I started the next day as his assistant, and then just sort of bounced around on a bunch of different network dramas. It's sometimes you land in one area and then you're just sort of in that zone. Like if you happen to get a job on an animated series, you probably get other jobs on other animated series. So yeah, I was in the drama part of things for a while.
You moved from New York to Los Angeles without a firm job, just I'll get there and they'll see how great I am and it's definitely going to happen?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I had I freelanced a little for the NBC at Los Angeles affiliate out here, but it wasn't a guaranteed job. They were just like, oh, you're from MSNBC, maybe we'll be able to hook you up with something. So yeah, essentially came without a job.
Not a timid fellow is Gregg Millman.
I was young and foolish.
No, it's worked out. I know plenty of people that played it safe, and by God, they've got job security, and they really wish they'd gone to do what they wanted to do.
Yeah. I did not go to law school, as my parents requested.
A 401k looks great. Time for more antidepressants.
Yeah, everyone in Hollywood's on antidepressants as well.
That's true.
Yeah.
Follow the dream. Don't follow the dream. You're still going to be American. So, and I noticed that you were an assistant to. You have assistant to writer credits on a number of shows. Like I saw, like 7 or 8 episodes of Boston. Is it Boston Legal?
Boston Legal.
Made your thing.
Yep, that was a David Kelly show with William Shatner and James Spader. Yeah, that was writer assistant. You're sort of assisting the writers. You're in the writers' room while they're coming up with ideas, and you're taking notes on what they're doing and doing research for them on topics, and hopefully pitching some of your own ideas and trying to get your ideas in the mix. But yeah, you're doing coffee runs, getting them whatever they want from Starbucks. So whatever the writer staff needs done, the writer assistant kind of handles.
So you're getting the coffee, then you come back and you say, "Oh, guys, I have an idea. What if Shatner was really Kirk the whole time?"
and Boston Legal was just a dream.
We're doing it. Then is the hope that you'll be able to write that screenplay?
Yeah, exactly. You use the Starbucks as sort of a bribery, so they'll listen to you.
Enjoy the coffee while you're enjoying it. Let me tell you my idea.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, so how do you go from there to, what was the name of your One Crazy Cruise? Is the movie with Nickelodeon, right?
Yeah.
So process from there to now official screenwriter. You've got a big old movie on your IMDb page that you wrote, sir. What's that process like?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you sort of, I think the way most people sort of break in is if you come out to Los Angeles, it's just networking, so working as an assistant on those shows, you get to know the writers. And so I would hand them my scripts and beg them to read it. And then if any of the writers happened to like it, they would hand it to their agent or manager. So that the agents or managers are sort of the gatekeepers in Hollywood. So if you can get an agent or manager, then they can start booking you meetings with other producers and studios and networks. So yeah, from after working on all those shows, I just had a series of different agents and managers. They come and go. And yeah, and then just, I think I worked on those shows for about 7 seasons or so. And then, and was sort of pitching my own ideas on the side while I was doing those shows. And then eventually, yeah, I just managed to sell a couple of pitches on my own. So I stopped working as an assistant on the shows and was just doing screenwriting on my own. So yeah, I think it's, you just sort of grind it out. You do a lot of pitches and, hope somebody nibbles on one of them.
I know there are screenwriters, I've met a few, that make a handsome living for themselves selling multiple screenplays that never get made into movies.
Yep.
Like they got paid. They're living.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the joke is that most screenplays never get made. So yeah, there are tons of screenwriters who maybe have 1 or 2 movies that were produced and probably sold, 30 that never got made. So yeah, you can have a nice career and not actually get things produced. Yeah, it's kind of wacky, but yeah,
his payments produced. That's pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. As long as you're getting paid to write, it's a good thing.
What's different about One Crazy Cruise that got greenlit, got a great cast, got to Nickelodeon?
It was, I think, just sort of luck and timing. I had a couple friends who worked at Nickelodeon as assistants when I was an assistant, so I had some inside intel on the kind of things they were looking for. which always helps. And sometimes their agent or manager or somebody might know, okay, we're setting a meeting with this producer or this network, and this is what they're looking for this year. They burned out on all their dark, moody soaps, so they only want upbeat cop shows or whatever it is. So yeah, I kind of knew the zones of what Nickelodeon was looking for that year, and so I spent the time coming up with a couple of different pitches that I thought would be a good fit for them, and one of them was a good fit. just got lucky. But yeah, having some the assistant network for inside information definitely helped.
So you go in, you pitch the idea, they say that's a great idea, let's do it. Then you actually have to go and sit down and write the screenplay, or is there a lot of hashing out back and forth of how much of it can we allocate, how many settings can we do, how much freedom do you have?
Yeah, I think usually the process is you go and you pitch the idea of the story, and that meeting happened to have the upper level executive in it. A lot of times you just pitch to the lower level executive. If they like it, then they tell their boss, and then you go back maybe a second time and pitch the upper level executive. But yeah, once you sort of sell the pitch and then they agree to hire you to write it, then you just sort of move straight to outlining it. You do a bunch of different outlines for them, and then if they like the outlines, then they put you to the script. That's the usual process. Sell the pitch, write the outline, then write the script.
You're doing how many meetings before you get to a screenplay then?
Oh, a lot. a lot of notes calls. Yeah, I mean, the Nickelodeon actually was great to work with. They know exactly what they're doing, and I happen to love Nickelodeon and watch a lot of their stuff, so I had a good sense of what they wanted. So they were great to work with, and they obviously would give a lot of notes and ask for changes, but it was all things that made sense because they know their audience so much better. So yeah, it was actually a fun process working with Nickelodeon.
Very cool. And then when you, I was going to ask you a dumb question you can't answer, so we'll move on. I was going to ask you, are you happy with the results? But of course you couldn't tell me if you weren't. Not if you want to get the next movie made. So we'll ignore that question and move on.
I will say that it was different than I expected. But happy with the results. Yeah.
It's one of those things where I skip anytime I see a celebrity interview, unless it's like Michael Keaton and they're going to ask him lots of Batman questions. All right, I'll watch that one. But otherwise, they're going to say, hey, did you enjoy working with everybody in the movie? What, you mean everyone I'm going to see for the sequel? Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, everyone who's going to, I'm going to try to work with again. Exactly.
Later, like 10 years, 15 years later, somebody's got to write a biography that tells us they were trying to kill each other the whole time.
Exactly. Yeah. That's funny.
So, because it's not a straight through line with your career, because you're starting with MSNBC, you're doing very serious work with Lawrence O'Donnell and Journal. I assume it's pretty serious. I don't know what the
it was so serious that that's why I quit. It was so serious I burnt out. It was a lot of war coverage. We had covered the war in Kosovo. It was around the time of the 2000 election disaster, a nightmare, and the Clinton-Lewinsky, all that stuff. So yeah, it was. I just burnt out on news being very, very dark and serious. Every time there was an airline crash, cable news covers it. So there's unfortunately, there's sort of a lot of death and destruction in cable news coverage. So yeah, I kind of burnt out on it and decided that I wanted to do something more fun.
So how does that translate from that to I want to write for children specifically? So as I recall, Boston Legal was not a kid's show.
Yeah. Well, when I came out and moved from New Jersey to California, went from news to Hollywood. Yeah, I wasn't actually doing kid stuff at first. So that was a little more similar. I went from, serious news to doing sort of serious adult drama. So I was working on shows that were probably in their own way as, dark and twisted as some of the news. So yeah, the kid stuff didn't come later until I started selling some of my own things. And that just sort of happened. It wasn't a conscious plan to become a kids writer. just so happened I had some connections and I knew people at Nickelodeon, and things like that happened.
Okay, so I got you. I didn't know if you had a child and suddenly you're surrounded by all kids stuff all the time, and like, yes.
No, I mean, I did have kids at that point, but yeah, they weren't too young to be watching any of this stuff. So yeah, it wasn't because of them, but now that my kids are sort of the age where they're watching and reading stuff, it's cool to be working in that area.
Well, yeah, no, that's the perfect time for it. And then, given the wide variety of things you've done up to this point, I'm assuming that eventually you'll move on and, I don't know, do R-rated action movies or something.
Could be next. Gotta finish these 5 books first, and then.
So that's for sure going to happen. And then after the 5 books, do you think that you'll continue to write specific middle grade books, or do you want to write other things?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I right now I think I'd love to stay in this zone. But then I think as my son Hugh ages up, maybe I'll end up writing something that's more YA, so he'll be, reading it in high school. But yeah, I mean, right now I'm so obsessed and into the middle grade books that we're reading. I mean, it was funny. Someone was asking me the other day, I'm like, "Oh, what are you reading?" I just started listing all these kids' books, and they were like, "Well, what are you talking about?" So yeah, I just really love the middle grade zone right now. So yeah, for the near future at least.
Have you got some favorites?
Yeah, we just finished the Timmy Failure series, which was amazing. Really kind of weird and absurd, and kind of like Wes Anderson, but in book form for kids. Right now we're reading the Middle School Worst Years of My Life series, which is great. We read the first Max Einstein, and I think the second one's coming out or about to come out. So we're going to read that. And like I said, the Nerds books were really great spy books. So yeah, we're sort of all over the map in terms of genre. Diary of a Wimpy Kid. But yeah, I will say the thing I noticed reading stuff with my son is that a lot of the books are kind of dark and can be really gritty. Like Max Einstein, she's homeless in New York, and Timmy Failure's father, he has an absentee dad, and yeah, there's just a lot of sort of real world things that come up in these books for kids that I don't think they did that as much when we were younger and reading. At least I don't remember the books being like that kind of real and dark in spots, so.
And then we grew up and we said, wait, the world is dark? Why didn't someone tell me about this? Whereas today's kids
they'll know. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can't imagine having read a book about a homeless, lead character when I was growing up. I mean, just don't have any memory of reading anything like that. It was like Encyclopedia Brown and, Beverly Cleary and Matthew Christopher wrote those sports books. It was all... Yeah, there was nothing very edgy, at least in what I was reading.
Well, as I recall, Ralph S. Mouse, well, now he lived in a hotel, but I know there was at least a sequel or two where he was homeless for a time, hitting the road on his motorcycle. And
okay, all right, maybe there were. Yeah, nothing stuck with me as like, wow, that's really dark.
Yeah, I don't think I would describe The Mouse and the Motorcycle as gritty.
For the time period, maybe. Yeah.
Although that does amuse me when writers go that way with absurd characters, where it's like, you could have taken this anyway. It's a fantastical premise. There's no realism to this. Why? Why is their life dark?
Right.
They could just as easily be happy.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know we're quickly bearing along toward the end of our time, so I want to make sure I ask you at least a little bit about advertising.
Sure.
The people that haven't religiously stalked your website here don't know that you done some advertising for Deadpool, the newest Fantastic Four movies, some other things along there.
Yeah.
So how does advertising impact your fiction work, and how is that impacting your marketing for the Candy Kingdom?
That's a good question. I mean, because I worked in entertainment, a lot of the advertising things that I tackled were entertainment related. So, like you said, like the movie stuff, I did a lot of movie trailers, sort of movie posters and taglines.
Did you edit the trailers?
Yeah, like, you know, coming up with the words that like come on screen during the trailers, and so yeah, so I was given those things in advertising because I had an entertainment in background, and then how did those things influence writing now? I mean, I'm not quite sure. I think advertising definitely makes you keep things short and sweet and sort of punchy. You know, there's not much time in a commercial, or obviously in a tagline is 4 or 5 words. So yeah, I think in general, keeping things sort of punchy and to the point helps generally whatever kind of writing you're doing. So that may be one way.
So what's and I know there's never a good advertisement or a good a good answer to this question. So I know that going in, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How do you know if an advertising campaign has been effective? How do you judge that?
I mean, they can do these studies they call lift studies. So after they, you know, run a campaign, maybe in a certain market, they can actually, you know, see did sales increase in that market. And obviously there could be other reasons sales increased. It's never sort of like a guarantee that this is the reason why, but advertising agencies, you know, at least try to provide that kind of data to clients and say, okay, we did this and we changed this messaging, or we changed, you know, the packaging in this area, and we think it had this impact on sales. That's, you know, that's sort of the hard, concrete way. And then, you know, just in general, if there's awareness of something you're doing, you know, if you're launching a movie and there's, you know, online chatter and people are, you know, talking about it on Twitter and sharing stuff, you know, that's another way you can try to, you know, track did the advertising have any impact.
I'm assuming if you go to somebody about a new advertising job and they say, wait, you did the advertising for Deadpool? That was a great big successful movie. Gregg Millman, you must be the most amazing advertiser ever lived.
It had nothing to do with Ryan Reynolds. Yeah.
It was all you, baby.
Yep. Take credit for that.
But then I suppose you have to take blame for Josh Trank's movies.
Yeah. Well, we know Josh Trank didn't want to take blame for it. I think he blamed Fox. So everyone.
Yeah, that was the tweet heard around the world, right? Opening weekend, he came out and was like, they sabotaged my movie. Like, dude, shut up. Let opening weekend finish first. Josh Trank, if you're watching, absolutely loved Chronicle. When you write a children's book, please come on the show. We think you're great. But I wanted to ask you about writing taglines. What are you seeing? What's I know there's no secret to writing a good tagline, but what are common mistakes you see people making, or writing taglines, or just doing advertising in general, and specifically toward books?
Yeah, I think that's just a matter of I would say for taglines, just staying on point, staying on message, and, you know, keeping things as short as possible. Specifically with, you know, taglines that are in print, you know, I don't think people want to read super long, rambling, you know, 2 or 3 sentences. So I'm always trying to keep things as short as possible when it comes to advertising and taglines. So
5 words less. That's the sweet spot.
Yeah, 2 or 3 if you can do it.
What cracks me up are the covers that are a montage of scenes from the book, which I haven't read yet. So that doesn't mean anything to me when I'm looking at your cover.
Yeah.
I'm sure after I finish the book, I'm going to look back at that cover and go, oh, yeah, accurate.
Oh, yeah.
Very.
Yeah. Now I see.
I know we're coming right up here to the end of our spot. So I want to ask, one, when does Candy Kingdom 2 come out? When can we look forward to that?
I would say hopefully within the next 6 months to a year. Hopefully sooner than a year. I'm already started writing it, so promoting the first one is taking up some of the time as well that I would normally use to write the book itself. So It might take a little longer than the 6 months that the first one took, but yeah, I'm trying to crank it out as fast as possible.
What kind of promotion techniques are you finding to be most effective for book one so far?
I think doing a mix of everything, doing podcasts like this. I've written some blog articles just about, my experiences in Hollywood and writing novels, and obviously Amazon ads, Facebook ads. I think you kind of have to throw it all against the wall and see what sticks. So just a mix of anything and everything.
And then my last question is always, if you had a time machine, if you had some way to go back and communicate with younger you, and not maybe the you of earlier this year when you started KANDY Kingdom, but or earlier you, just for tips on writing that maybe would have made your overall journey easier, what would you go back and tell past you?
I would say, I think the mistake I made was not figuring out what to focus on, and just sort of being all over the place. I was writing serious network TV dramas, and then writing animated series, and I wrote a gritty 70s historical drama about like the Weather Underground, the student terrorists in the 70s. So I think like most young writers, you just try to, you're all over the place trying to figure out what you're good at and what you like writing. But yeah, I guess my advice would be experiment and play around, but then definitely try to focus as fast as possible, because once you focus, you can sort of develop your skills in that one area and, develop your expertise, develop fans in that area. So, just focusing faster than I did is something I would tell my young self.
And Rick, where can the esteemed audience find out more about you, more about the books online?
They can go to greggmillman.com, so GREGG, and then M as in Mary, ILLMAN.com. And there's info about the book, the movie. I'm writing a blog that's in character as an official from the KANDY Kingdom, and the king is upset that this author Gregg Millman is claiming he wrote the KANDY Kingdom Saga, because it's actually the real historical record of the kingdom. So I'm wanted, dead or alive, by the KANDY Kingdom. So all the blog updates are written like that. So you may actually be aiding and abetting right now, promoting this as a work of fiction. So you may end up in the blog.
Well, let's redo the entire interview. Tell me how you stole the history. How did you get your hands on it?
Yeah, exactly. How did I get to the KANDY Kingdom to steal? That's a good question. I think the king will be asking that when they arrest me.
And esteemed audience, as always, keep up with what's going on with the show, what's going on with me at middlegradeninja.com. Make sure you download your free ebook copy of Banneker Bones and the Giant Robot Bees. If you're curious, also check out the Book of David Chapter 1, or get both. They're free. Go nuts. Greg, I've been asking our guest to sign us off. Thank you, by the way, so much for being here, for making the time out of your schedule.
It's so much fun.
But I've been asking our guests to sign off, and our sign-off phrase is the extremely ninja-like hiya and what have you. Will you sign us off?
I would love to, be honored. Hiya and what have you.